Hello. Hello and welcome back. This is Frantz Kantor here, Cartoonist, Illustrator, Toon Talker, and today I'm going to do another drawing. This time I'm going to forgo my interest in American politics. I'm not interested actually at all. So I'm going to draw a friend of mine actually, an illustrator and cartoonist who is responsible for this lovely booklet here, Loopy Dave. So I picked this up at the last Supernova comic convention. So David Dunstan is the artist's name, the cartoonist, and he does some beautiful, really lovely illustrations of pop culture themes. Usually has an incredible eye for caricature, personality. It's a lovely personality, and a really beautiful sense of style. Everything is, glowing recommendations as a cartoonist and as an illustrator. So these are there's an incredible amount of works. Every time I look at these, it's sort of I go a bit crazy with the amount of story, narrative, and detail that he puts into them. It's really, really sophisticated. It's an incredible testament to his even his take on Klimt, an alien version of Judith and Holofernes, the decapitated head of the xenomorph. So, beautiful, beautiful stuff. Really, really lovely. It's lovely work. Incredible sense of humor as well as the detail. Look at the detail in there. It's amazing stuff. So I don't want to do a book review. We've got a book review up on the Australian Cartoon Museum website. Look at the light in those eyes. Isn't that lovely? And yeah, beautiful stuff. So so please check out the toontalk.show, and on there you'll see a review of his book. Some incredible, the thing I love about this is the amount of love that's gone into, Buster Crabs as Flash Gordon. Now, I have never seen Buster Crabs as Flash Gordon I have as yet, but I am interested now in YouTubing him, simply because of the amount of love and investigation that he's put into these characters. When was this? 1930s or 1940s? The Buster Crabs, Flash Gordon, but it's incredible. Not just the humor, everything there, the composition, look at that, the goblin from The Hobbit. Fantastic. Just brilliant stuff. Barbarella, Sarsaparilla, 1 million years BC. So their takes on famous films, famous movie posters, and incredibly, look at that. So it's incredible amount of energy and attention to detail. Look at the texture in the T-Rex's schnoz. Isn't that beautiful? There's a film that's close to unwatchable because of its staginess. Often been referred to, I think in Amazon Women on the Moon, they did a take on this 1950s film. That's Zsa Zsa Gabor, I think. Zsa Zsa Gabor. Hercules, the Steve Reeves. It's almost like the energy of Mad Magazine. If you grew up with Mad Magazine like I did, it's the same sort of stuff, but you don't have to read it in black and white. You can enjoy it in full color. These are wonderful, wonderful illustrations. Lovely caricatures, and really, really well done. Really well done. Great work. Okay, so what I've done a thumbnail sketch of Dave. So we'll let's have a look at the reference material. This is a reference which I took at I think the last comic convention. So that's the image I'm going to work from, the caricature I'm going to work from. This is very cool, and I've done a thumbnail sketch based on that. So what I've done is I've exaggerated and simplified the shapes. I've turned it into this sort of bean shape here. It's a bit hard. Look, it's an organic shape. I don't know how a lot of these things, they're not platonic solids, so I don't know really how to describe them, but there it is. Lighting wise, I think we're going to establish the light coming in from the right hand side, which means that everything that's on the left hand side of the face is going to be favoring the shadows, the shadow zone. The other thing is to consider in this shape that we've picked, see how simplified this is beautiful. It could be a character, cartoon character in and of itself. It's got a lovely sense of imbalance and then rebalance. So if you were to draw a line down the center of the mass, you'll see this happen. Let me draw it even simpler. You'll see this happen, which is a very interesting effect of imbalance and rebalance. So, you know, normally we associate balance with symmetry, right? But asymmetry has to be compensated. Now, the way to think about this is to think about the yin and yang symbol. Now, forgive me, I might get this wrong, in the wrong sort of direction. But basically, these tadpole shapes that represent balance, right? It's not this. That is balance, okay? This is balance. So this is sort of like a dynamic form of balance, which means that it has a sense of movement, a sense of dynamic energy and forces at work. Rather, this is more like something at rest, where this is something that's living and breathing and moving. Okay, so we put a little bit of shape. We create a simple shape. We concentrate on the simple shape. Then we add this sort of energy aspect of the yin and yang symbol, the asymmetrical concept. And then, you know, all being good, we can then concentrate into this area here, which I like to call the T-zone or the mask zone. And that really encompasses the eyes and nose and the mouth. So these are the features that we recognize as being human, right? And that's what we're going to concentrate all our details in. So all of the details, the exaggeration is applied to the changing of the shape of the face to pick something more fun and inventive. And, you know, depends on the angle of the face. Often you create totally different shapes. Think of, you know, drawing, if you were to draw a flea, for example, from, let's draw a little mustache. I always put mustaches on fleas. If you were to draw a flea from the side, it looks like that, right? But from the front, it looks like that. So, same thing with humans. Humans have a variety of different shapes that might be applicable in caricature and exaggeration, depending on the angles or the expressions even, or, you know, the sides of the face, sides of the head. Other thing we need to consider is always think about the anatomy of the head while you're drawing. So that includes things like tilts and rotations. Remember that everything has a physicality in space. So the drawing that we're going to be doing is with a brown pencil, a white pencil, a black pencil. Okay? these little stubby things here. And this is a hard pencil. This is a polychromo. That's going to give us a nice thick and thin line. The white and brown pencils are Prismacolors, which are noted for their softness, which means that they can break. That's why I've got a battery-operated pencil sharpener here, because if I was to use a handheld pencil sharpener, it would definitely break the leads, because they're very, very soft and brittle. And not brittle, soft. Alright, so what I've done is I've done this pencil sketch, this thumbnail sketch, which I like to call it. And I like to work quite small, because I can work quite quickly and fluid, to create a gesture of the idea of the face that I'm drawing, and then, you know, it's easy to sort of erase with, you know, blue pencil. I mean, it's not so hard to remove, you know, if you make any mistakes. I tend not to work in HBs or pencils quite a lot. I do write with these, but I tend not to work on them. There is a particular style of working in graphite, which is what this is a graphite pencil. We may just, I'm actually thinking of exploring that in a different subject, a course, graphite pencil, because what it is you've got a lot of work to do ahead of you working on a white paper. With graphite pencil, you've got to create a halftone. And there's a lot of tonal work involved, a lot of, you know, pencil work. It takes a very long time to establish that. Whereas with the grey paper, of course, it meets you halfway, which is great. So what I've done was I've sketched this up onto the grey paper, and this is going to be the basis of the caricature. And we're going to get into the details now and sort of progress further into the face that is David Dunstan, aka Loopy Dave. So when I first saw Dave's work, I was really, really excited, because, you know, I grew up with Mad Magazine, and I was really, really familiar with that level of humor and the idea of you know, lampooning popular culture, movies and TV shows and things. It was a very, very familiar territory to me. And also the fact that he does it so beautifully, so well. I mean, digital illustration allows you really to spend more time on the drawing process. He does a lot of the drawing on paper and then scans it in and then paints it with used to paint it with a mouse, believe it or not, for many years. But now, of course, I think he's gone on to the stylus and the Wacom. There's a lot of patience and attention to detail is required. Let's sharpen this a little bit better. Is required in capturing these details. A lot sharper than what I'm doing here, because I can't really zoom in, you know. But if this was digital, of course, you have the ability to zoom in to the closer and closer into each single element, you know, like the eyeballs and stuff. So you're able to create a level of detail which up until the invention of digital illustration wasn't really available. And so, you know, oftentimes people ask me, does that make illustration easier for you in a computer? And the answer is no, it doesn't. It's just different. It's a different sort of thing. So whereas some of the tools make the process itself a little bit easier, like, you know, checking symmetry, etc. You know, in the olden days, you used to have a mirror to reflect it to see if you're drifting, you know, features are drifting on the face too far left or too far right or whatever, depending on your right-handedness or left-handed abilities, I think. Where was I? I don't want that to be so dark, so I better knock that back a little bit. So I love the idea of using simple shapes. I've simplified a lot of these areas, these shapes here. And I have, as I said before, I've kind of created, he's got some freckles which I'll put in here and there. He hasn't got many lines. There's a few lines around his face, around his eyes, which you expect. It's a lot of, because he done a lot of looking, baby. Yeah, he's done a lot of looking. So he has a very acute sense of detail, and he's able to really get into the structure, beautiful structure, textures and details of the characters, and humor as well. So it's, you know, who changes the reference, use the reference to start the idea rolling, and then of course the idea takes off on its own with its own sense of completion and narrative, its own narratives. Let's see if I can do him justice. So I'm just slowing down a little bit here so I can get some of these, because I've changed the shape of the and size of a lot of these elements. I have to compensate. Yeah, that'll do. Right, hair's really great. You know, I keep saying this. Hair is so fun to draw with a pencil. We're going to get into some of these finer blonde hairs as well to be good. Because the strokes of the pencil kind of equate for the hair strands. Some fine beard will catch with a brush pen, with a Oscar pen in a second. That'll help us establish their contrasts. Great. Okay. Ooh. We're nearing the end of the book here, so I'm working on, paper's a bit spongy because of the I actually turned it around. So it's the paper itself's a bit springy. That's why I'm holding it down. It's got a lot of spring back, kickback. So the thing I love about Dave's work is he loves people. You can tell from the expressions that, well, the expression that he has, but also the expressions that the characters have, that he draws. It's a lot of you know, if you draw so many faces, you got to love the subject, right? Makes sense, yeah? And that's really evident in his work. So there's a really charming quality to that aspect. And I really, you know, I take solace in that, because I also, I love drawing faces. I just find something really relaxing in this, you know. It's sort of like a way of looking without getting in trouble. So You look at people, like if I was to gaze into Dave's eyes, in person, it would like be uncomfortable. Obviously, anyone, you look at anyone other than your dog probably, if you look at a human being's eyes, too long, and it becomes uncomfortable. It becomes very intimate, yeah? If you were to look at a gorilla's eyes or a chimpanzee's eyes for too long, they'll attack you. That's how threatening, this sort of personal contact is. But in a drawing, of course, I can look as long as I want. Gaze into Dave's eyes for a long, long time. And the more, there's some great lines, contours in his ear as well. I'm trying to make sure that I capture some of that personal. Ears are great, ears and teeth and things. They kind of, when we're children, they sort of start out as a normal, average, run-of-the-mill. Oh, that should be bigger. That's what that was. Normal, average shape, and then as we get older, of course, they take on their own personality. That's a very interesting idea of change, because time actually creates a dialogue with the face. Isn't that lovely? The dialogue of the face. It tells you things, tells you stories. Faces tell stories, and because we're humans, we love hearing stories. Faces invite us to listen. It's like this is like my campfire, and David is telling me a story, right? Now, David doesn't know that he's telling me a story, but he is. And I really am, I've become so conscious of that is the reason why I draw. I love hearing stories. I love thinking about, why is that wrinkle there? What does that mean? What does that tell me about the personality of the subject, So yesterday I was drawing Donald Trump, for example, and I was finding an awful lot about him. And I never had really an opinion about Donald Trump before, because I found him too polarizing, so repelling, and like a magnet, one side repels, the other side attracts. So you're either, depending on which side you are on the magnet, you're either attracted or repelled, which is a very interesting in and of itself, that property that a person would have in public office. It's not normally the case, really, is it? Usually people, like, they have good and bad sides to them, and depending on the issue at hand or the issue at stake or whatever, it kind of makes you think more about the actual issue of the time rather than the general person, the liking or disliking the person. But of course, people have changed a lot in this, the whole idea of our leaders having like their Twitter profile is more important than anything else about them. That's changed the whole nature of politics. So it's politics now. Politics has to be a certain amount of it, popular. Has to be part of popular culture. So that's interesting. So look for things, elements here, like to exaggerate. You know, if somebody has the mouth goes up on one side of the face when they smile, so there's a less symmetry, then you can use that as an excuse to exaggerate that and sort of make it more cockeyed, more disproportionate, or away from symmetry. Nature hates symmetry. I'll say that again. Nature hates symmetry, does not like symmetry. Symmetry is a form of imposed order on things. So we don't mind things symmetrical if we have to live in them, like a house or a building or workplace, the Pentagon, or the Great Pyramid of Giza or something like that. Well, you're not living there, are you? But we don't mind things that have symmetry in those areas, those sort of circumstances, because they're kind of expected. It's probably, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just one of those things. But in nature, we don't like to see symmetry, and nature itself does not use symmetry very, very often. So that is really a good sort of segue into explaining the reason why I like three-quarter views of faces. I just do. I like them because, I like drawing space. I like drawing form, and I like drawing things that have a little bit of dynamics to them, rather than straight symmetrical views. So I like a bit of boogie in the drawing, a little bit of movement, a little bit of gesture, right, to show dynamics, to show living, breathing qualities. Okay. So the brown pencil, you can see, is a little bit darker than the grey, and allows you a light touch in creating form. So you can get a beautiful understanding of light and shade really quite easily, effortlessly almost. Clothing is really an interesting, let's try to do justice to the t-shirt. Because t-shirts have a sense of their own style. So, larger t-shirts sit lower on the like the sleeves. Oversized t-shirts sit differently on the body, so the wrinkles would be different. I get to do the DD wrong. That's naturally. If I was doing this digitally, of course, I would zoom right in and do a really tight job, but I don't like having to tax the pencil too much. So we're just going to do a lighter effort. There we go. So let's continue. I think this that works out all right. I have a different signature actually when I work on bigger pieces. I get more of a chance of something. For years I've been able to sort of do same sort of K, but a different configuration. Just thought I'd mention that. The reason why actually I don't mind telling you that. The reason why I do this is partly it's because of two artists that influenced me when I was a kid. One used to sign his name like this, Jeffrey Jones, and another guy used to sign his name like that, and that's Frazetta. So I'm a product of my learning, the school of oil painting and fantasy women and fantasy drawings and paintings of Jeffrey Jones and Frank Frazetta. So a lot of this line, you know, the angles, I really appreciate this sort of curves and flats, sharps and rounds, sharps and rounds. So a variety of line work, I really enjoy that. And I got an appreciation of that aspect from a French cartoonist called Serge Clerc. If you want to look him up, you can enjoy his work. I love line and shape, and those are the two, you know, first steps in art. Two of the first elements. So you've got line, which is the first port of call, of course, and then you've got shape, which is the second. So again, you know, focusing on the mask zone, the T zone, or whatever you want to call it, this area here, area of concentration. Of course, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, right? So always head back into that. That's where I like to put the emphasis, especially with drawing. With digital work, you can put, you know, details everywhere you want to, but I usually start with this sort of basic area. Now he's got blue eyes, so concentrate actually create the pupils first, and then the irises, and then the eyelashes. So he's got red hair, so the eyelashes are they're not dark, they're quite light, but the flesh of the lids, folds of skin, are very important. So the black pencil allows you to articulate a lot of the contrasts really well. And you know, the lighter you press, obviously it's just helping create a difference between just helping the brown pencil a little bit, and then of course the harder you press, the darker that area becomes. So it has a flexibility of line and tone. So recognition comes from, in caricature, because you're moving things around a lot, recognition comes from the playing of the game of caricature. So seeing, you know, an eye here, a nose there, and that, all of these different shapes add up to sort of a jigsaw effect of recognition by piece of a puzzle, pieces of the puzzle. So the more exaggerated you push these shapes, the more exaggeration you employ in the process, the more novel that is, the more interesting that process is of finding the recognition for the reader, for the viewer. You know, and a lot of illustrators like Robert Risco and Hirschfeld, etc., they use very minimal effect, very minimal brush work, pencil work, line work, pen work, to establish elements that are recognizable. But it is a case of accumulation of details. So obviously the more details you put in that are relevant to the personality, to the person, the greater the recognition factor. Great. Have to be careful with how much black I put into the beard zone here. I am going to hit it with a white in a sec. Might do that now, just sort of sneak in very quickly. So as you're painting shadows with the black, you're painting light essentially with the white, or drawing light with the white pencil. Because it's soft, it can tend to build up, accumulate over the pencil work underneath. Doesn't mind too much. It has a sort of a soft pastel-y, like an oil pastel effect, so it can be quite accumulate. The pigment can accumulate quite well. So I'm just going to prove that the zone of interest, the zone of detail, of complexity, concentrate on that. Just that. The rest you can render differently. But as long as you get this right, you've got a bit of flexibility with the way you draw the rest of the detail. He's got a few freckles which I'll build in as well. I have simplified the nose, so it is now more of a cartoony prospect in terms of its shape. There is a distinct recognition, not recognition, but I hope it's a recognition. There's a distinct reference to the reference of the nose, is what I was going to say. But I have deviated from it and simplified a little bit. I find it works better for me. It's a personal thing. It's not generally the case for everybody. Okay, so there's a lot of different textures, shine and translucency in different parts of the face. There's a lot of muscles here at work around his eyes. So what does that tell you about somebody who uses their eyes a lot? What's their line of work, could you imagine? So they use their eyes so much that it creates these lines around them. So he's got fair skin, so I don't imagine him spending a lot of time outdoors so much, but certainly in front of a computer screen he'd spend a lot of time, which means that the lines around his eyes are to do with observation. Here we go, that's nice. Right, let's try to get some sparkle. Good. Let's press on with all possible dispatch. Might need the paper to lean on to sort of move pigment around like a messy kid. I just want to give some contrast now to the form that I've established already, I think, quite well. Kind of looks like the thumbnail, but with a little bit more. I haven't sort of deviated too much. Occasionally, you know, when you're looking at details, sometimes it gets less like the cartoon or the distortion and more like the real person. That is unavoidable, unfortunately, because of the level of detail that you're talking about. So the more detail you put in, the more closer it becomes to the reference. There's nothing you can do about that. You've got a lovely face. I'm enjoying this drawing. You know, it's great fun for me to draw a cartoonist and another caricaturist. It's a lot of fun. Apart from giving some of their own medicine back, it's a way of seeing the reading the emphasis on you know, there's a visual narrative, there's a sense of storytelling that faces have, and caricaturists become aware of this, and in the drawing process every face tells a story, you know, and it's sort of invigorating, I guess, to see that the people that know that also have it in their face. So it's not something that they can physically disguise, you know. Which is interesting, isn't it? So yeah, pencil and hair. Great. Match made in heaven. So I've got a line of shadow here. Here be creating a cave underneath. I think that will probably work. I've changed the position of that element, so I have to keep the same general texture and shape. There we go. Good. We can also hit that with a few highlights with the white pencil. That helps kick out the contrasts a little bit. Of course, add shine, appropriate amount, I think, not too much. Right, we need to put in a light texture up here, so to give it more form, roundness. Sort of loosen up. See how loose we can get around the exterior, around the perimeter of the face, of the eyes and nose and mouth, which is good. Cool. So if you wanted to check out some more of Dave's work, go up to his ArtStation website, Loopy Dave. There's loopydave.com. Kind of looks like that. And his ArtStation portfolio, where would that be? Hang on a second. So go back to, here it is. Look at that, beautiful. Margot Robbie. Brilliant. It's beautiful. Look at the detail. Isn't that lovely? So beautiful and detailed. And he loves crocodiles, which I perfectly understand. They're delicious to draw. Beautiful textures, and dinosaurs, of course, he'll love that. There's some velociraptors for you. Gorgeous amount of cartoon and detail. This one, look at that. Awesome. Get the distortion, fantastic. Lovely shapes, you know, variety of shapes, beautifully composed, perfect. Just really, really, really well done. This is a master of his medium. Look at that lovely hair. Awesome. Beautiful. Look at at that one. Fantastic. Beautiful illustrations. All right, let's go back. So, you know, looking at his work is really beautifully detailed and very, very funny. Great eye for detail and story. So storytelling mode of the characters that he draws. It's really extraordinary. I'm a great believer that characters, they're expressive enough, they really create their own narratives, they really tell their own stories. And that's very true of his the characters that he draws. So I'm just exploring some curves and straights, sharps and smooths. I'm going to get to this with a brush pen and give it more emphasis. I think would be fun. So let's try to do that in a minute. Very enjoyable. David Dunstan, Loopy Dave. Very inspiring work. Love the attention to detail that he has. It's brilliant. It's very exciting to see that detail in work. Level of diligence and patience and professional approach. Very, very strong. I can't zoom in to get the sort of porcelain reflections that he does on the teeth, but I think we'll contend with the the fact that we're just going to do it very, very roughly and quickly. I know the DDs are red, but not using red, so just want to create a bit of contrast. Alright, let's get into some of these smaller details here. Cool. So I'm zipping back and forth to make sure I get the right direction of hair, because hair forms patterns, right? So they follow the form that they grow on. And that's true of fur and hair. So it's important to refer back to the reference and make sure that it has a level of truth to what you're doing. There's a reason for it. Okay. Okay, so let's try to strengthen some of the contours a little bit here, and some of the darker areas we want to articulate. Don't know why I did that, doesn't matter. Leave it. Okay. So, so we've got the basic form, and I think what we'll do is we'll cut in with the black brush and try to establish this negative space around the figure a little bit more. I tend to leave a bit of a space so that the line work can sort of hold its own and not get absorbed into the background. This is a Zig Brush Pen. It uses a sort of a calligraphic ink, so it's a bit more fluid than Indian ink, but is quite black, quite solid. It's a water-based brush pen. And the pigment is in these cartridges which you attach to the brush. So these are the refills. It's quite a good system. I've tried refilling the refills, but to no avail. You have to sort of use their own brand of ink. Not too expensive, so I think fair enough. quite a flexible brush. Does handle a little bit of detail, yeah. Anything sharper than that, of course, it would be best off using a fine point brush. Just colour the edges of this in, and then I'll get to it with a thicker Posca marker. So that'll be black. Great. Here you go. All right, so this is a Posca paint pen, and it's very cool to use because it dries beautifully strong and flat and contrasty, doesn't sink into the paper, so which is a great thing. You know how frustrating it is to try to get a black background or black element in a drawing, and the markers sort of sink into the paper and give you a very patchy end result. Right, looks fairly structured. Rightio, here we go. I think I've said all I can with this drawing. It's very, very, very interesting face. Very interesting face. Right, there we have Loopy Dave. Let's have a look at the photograph. Let's have a look at my drawing. I think I've tackled the likeness quite well. I recognize him. I don't know whether you people would recognize him. The same level of detail, I guess, but I think I've gotten his personality a little bit. I've explored that, and very, very talented artist. Very talented artist. Great guy, and you can tell from his work, you know, how much effort that he puts into these beautiful illustrations. It's lovely, master of composition and color and technique, and masterfully drawn, beautiful sense of proportion and perspective, and really cool details. I didn't realize that. Looks like there's a very retro flying saucers. Looks like a Damsky saucers. Some beautiful work, Beautiful work. Okay, so enough of this. This is the caricature that I've just done of David Dunstan, aka Loopy Dave. And this is Frantz Kantor saying to you, I will catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.